They pressed record, thought it listened, it watched instead. A breath paused, power blinked, someone flinched. Control loves silence. Silence broke teeth. You felt it, didn't you? The room tilted, voices shrank, confidence sweated, not leaked, rearranged. Buttons stopped obeying, eyes avoided mirrors. Funny thing, truth doesn't shout, it changes posture. Smiles recalculated, handshakes loosened, plans stuttered. Because recordings don't expose secrets, they expose hierarchies. And suddenly, everyone above you started acting below themselves. Control never collapses on impact. It clears its throat first. A microscopic pause, a delayed response, a smile arriving late to its own face. That's where the recording landed, not like a bomb. Like dust in polished lungs. They didn't freeze. That would have been honest. They didn't explode. That would have been clean. They adjusted. Subtle posture shifts. Sentences softened at the edges. Authority learned to ask instead of assume. When power starts checking its reflection, you know something internal cracked. The recording wasn't dangerous because of what it contained. That's the rookie. Mistake. Listening for scandal. No. It was dangerous because of what it preserved. Timing, tone, the order of voices, who spoke freely, who waited for permission, who joked, who never had to. Control lives in patterns people forget to notice. The device didn't accuse anyone. It didn't editorialize. It just remembered. And memory is toxic to systems that survive on selective amnesia. Suddenly it became evidence. Familiar dominance became measurable. The room didn't feel exposed. It felt indexed. You could sense the shift immediately. Chairs pulled closer to tables. Hands stopped wandering. Laughter recalculated. When power senses documentation, it stops improvising and starts rehearsing. That's not strength. That's stage fright. They told themselves nothing changed. Systems always do. That's the first defense. Declare continuity. But continuity requires confidence, and confidence requires forgetting. The recording refused to forget. It introduced a hidden variable into every interaction. What if this moment lasts? That question alone destabilizes hierarchy. Because control depends on ephemerality, on moments dissolving the second they pass. Once moments persist, authority comes accountable to its own rhythm. The ones at the top felt it first, not guilt, downgrade risk, the fear that their position might now be evaluated instead of assumed. That's when behavior turns ceremonial, when power begins dressing itself up for inspection. They didn't become cautious, they became performative. And performance is brittle. The recording didn't expose secrets, it exposed vibration errors, who leaned too comfortably, who interrupted without consequence, who assumed silence meant agreement. Control coughed, not loud enough to alarm, just enough to be noticed by anyone listening closely. And once you hear that sound, you never mistake it for confidence again. Every system runs exams it never admits exist. No papers, no warnings, no second attempts. They call it culture. They call it instinct. They call it just how things work. But it's a test. The recording didn't reveal answers. It revealed grading criteria. Who was allowed to interrupt? Who could change the rules mid-sentence? Who spoke in conclusions instead of questions? The device didn't listen like a human. It listened like an auditor with infinite patience. That's why the reaction was delayed. Everyone sensed they'd already submitted something. They just didn't know what. Power hates retroactive evaluation. Before the recording, behavior floated. After it, behavior landed. Suddenly, tone had weight. Pauses had implications. Jokes became liabilities. The room wasn't dangerous. It was measurable. And measurable environments terrify people who built their authority on intuition and fog. His was the hidden test. How do you behave when you believe nothing will remember you? Most failed. Some leaned harder into dominance, mistaking volume for immunity. Others shrank, hoping invisibility would be mistaken for innocence. A few tried to rewrite themselves in real time, overcorrecting, over-explaining, overperforming humility. All of it was data. The smartest ones didn't defend them. LVEs. They observed. Because observation is the only correct response when the rules change silently. They realized the recording wasn't a threat. It was a new syllabus, one that rewarded restraint, memory, and timing over theatrics. Secret clubs depend on shared amnesia, on everyone agreeing not to remember too clearly. The recording broke that pact without saying a word. It turned instinct into evidence, made the informal formal, exposed how promotions really happen, how forgiveness circulates, how mistakes are priced differently depending on who makes them. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The powerful started acting different not because they were exposed, but because they sensed they were being ranked. Quietly, continuously, by something that didn't care about reputation. Tests are only cruel when you don't know you're taking one. This one was worse. It kept running. Every meeting after felt like a retake. Every sentence sounded provisional. Authority began to hesitate not from ethics but from calculation. When outcomes feel uncertain, power becomes cautious. When power becomes cautious, it stops being feared. And fear, that was the real credential, the wrecker. Ding didn't strip it away, it just proved who never earned it in the first place. Angels are the last to suspect substitution. They're raised on permanence, on the quiet belief that without them, everything fractures. Monsters know better. Monsters expect replacement. Angels expect gratitude. That's why the recording hit them hardest. Not with blame, with redundancy. The moment the system kept functioning without their narrative glue, something inside them loosened. Meetings still happened. Decisions still landed. The machine didn't stall just because their voice wasn't the loudest in the room. That realization is lethal to myth. You could see it in their reactions. Courtesy became procedural. Warmth turned strategic. Favors started leaving paper trails. Angels don't like documentatio. Then, it implies audit. And audits imply outcomes they don't control. The recording didn't accuse anyone of wrongdoing. It did something worse. It proved that tone had been mistaken for value, that presence had been confused with necessity. Once that illusion cracked, self-importance scrambled to reassert itself through policy, process, and sudden principles. Principles appear late, when leverage disappears. What frightened them wasn't exposure, it was reclassification. The fear of being moved from essential to optional, from irreplaceable to convenient. Systems don't punish angels, they archive them. And archiving feels like kindness until you realize no one opens the file again. Some responded with generosity, others with mentorship offers that arrived years too late. A few tried to weaponize morality, turning every objection into a character flaw. But morality without power is just decoration. The monsters adapted faster. They always do. Monsters know systems are transactional. Angels believe they're sacred. When the recording surfaced, monsters recalculated margins and moved on. Angels stalled, waiting for appreciation that never came. That's when behavior changed most visibly. Voices softened unnaturally. Authority asked permission from optics. Decisions sought consensus not for wisdom, but for insulation. Replaceability has a smell. It smells like overcommunication. The Joker doesn't need to mock this moment. Gravity does the work. When angels realize they're optional, they don't fall dramatically. They drift, and drifting is worse, because no one notices. The exact second you stop being necessary, you just discover you already were. Silence used to be protection. Now it was testimony. Before the recording, what went unsaid dissolved safely into habit. After it, every absence felt intentional. Every pause looked curated. Silence flipped from shield to signal, and no one knew how loud they were being. Power thrives on controlled noise, on knowing when to speak and when not to. The recording disrupted that rhythm. It introduced memory where there used to be evaporation. Suddenly, withholding a response wasn't neutral. It was suspicious. Rooms felt different. Conversations stopped half a sentence early. Laughter exited first. Decisions were delayed under the polite mask of alignment. Alignment with what? With a version of authority that no longer trusted its own instincts. Outrage could be dismissed. Silence couldn't. Silence demanded interpretation, and interpretation breeds paranoia faster than conflict ever could. That's how the unseen influence shifted. People began watching reactions instead of statements, tracking who answered quickly, who avoided follow-ups, who let others speak first, not out of humility, but calculation. Authority that once commanded now waited, afraid of becoming quotable. The paradox tightened. Speak too much, reveal motive. Say too little, reveal fear. The recording didn't force this tension. It exposed it. It removed the luxury of ambiguity while pretending to preserve it. Everyone knew something fundamental had changed, but no one company. Old name it without sounding guilty, so silence screamed, not outwardly, internally. It fractured cohesion. Teams functioned, but without trust. Cooperation became performance. Performance became exhausting. When every interaction feels like it might be reviewed later, sincerity becomes a liability. Power didn't collapse, it became nervous. Eyes tracked sideways. Commands softened into suggesti. Suggestions returned as questions. Hierarchy stopped being vertical and started vibrating. That vibration was the danger, because systems don't fail when challenged. They fail when they start narrating themselves, when leaders explain instead of decide, when authority seeks permission from optics. The recording didn't expose lies, it exposed hesitation, and hesitation is contagious. Once, silence stopped protecting them. They lost the one weapon they trusted completely. They could no longer hide behind what wasn't said. Every quiet moment now carried weight. Every pause left fingerprints. And in that pressure, control didn't break. It started rehearsing its own collapse. Every system has a graduation point. Not announced, not celebrated, just felt. It's the moment survival no longer requires belief. The recording pushed people there faster than intended, not by revealing forbidden knowledge, but by clarifying the syllabus. Suddenly, patterns made sense. Why some mistakes vanished, why others lingered, why certain voices could fail upward while others disappeared quietly. This wasn't outrage. It was orientation. Graduation didn't come with freedom, it came with dista. Emotional detachment from approval. A subtle straightening of the spine. When you understand the grading curve, you stop pleading for fairness and start managing outcomes. That terrified the top, not rebellion, competence, without loyalty. People who were never meant to advance began acting differently, not louder, calmer. They asked fewer questions and took better notes. They stopped arguing. G principles and started mapping incentives. That's how you recognize graduates. They optimize exits, not applause. The system responded predictably. New initiatives bloomed overnight. Inclusion language intensified. Narratives were rewritten retroactively. We've always valued transparency. Classic rehabilitation behavior. But it rang hollow. Graduation changes posture. Graduates don't lean forward, seeking validation. They lean back and observe. The Joker watches this phase with interest, not chaos, clarity. Watching who adjusts, who panics, who doubles down on a script no one's reading anymore. The recording wasn't the lesson. Reaction to it was the final exam. Some passed by adapting quietly. Others repeated the course, mistaking activity for progress. A few were dropped without ceremony. Still present, but no longer relevant. And here's the quiet fracture. Graduates don't announce themselves. They remain inside the room, physically compliant, mentally untethered. That's the most dangerous configuration for any hierarchy. Participants who understand it but no longer respect it. Graduation doesn't dismantle systems. It hollows them out. Decisions still happen, meetings still rue, but the belief that once glued it together evaporates. What remains is process without conviction, authority without gravity. The recording didn't create graduates. It revealed how many were already ready to leave. They just needed permission they never asked for. And once graduation happens, there's no re-enrollment, only replacement. Monsters don't flinch at exposure. They expect it. Why price it in? They move. Saints are different. Saints rely on insulation, on the belief that intention outweighs impact, that tone equals virtue, that being good grants permanence. The recording stripped that comfort without confrontation. And that's why saints staggered, not from guilt, from disbelief. The monsters recalibrated immediately. They shortened sentences, reduced surface area, shifted alliances with surgical calm. Monsters know systems are transactional, not moral. When variables change, they adjust the math. Saints paused. They waited for acknowledgement, for reassurance, for someone to say, "This doesn't apply to you." That pause cost them leverage. While they defended self-image, monsters secured position. You could watch it happen. Alliances reshuffled quietly. Old rivalries went dormant. New partnerships appeared overnight, not built on trust, but insurance. Favors were exchanged preemptively. Information moved sideways instead, upward. Influence stopped following titles and started following memory. The recording favored memory, not charisma, not volume, not righteousness. People who spoke less and remembered more gained gravity. Observers became nodes, listeners became brokers. The saints, still polishing narratives, didn't notice the floor had shifted. This wasn't chaos. It was market correction. Power didn't see or fall. It leaked, seeping into unexpected hands, quiet ones, patient ones, those who understood that survival after exposure isn't about being seen as right, but about being seen as useful. That's where the Joker thrives, not as disruption, but as archivist, watching patterns repeat, watching who adapts and who insists the rules never changed. Memory accumulates quietly. It doesn't argue. It waits. Saints tried to reclaim authority through principles, monsters through position. Neither fully worked. Authority after exposure belongs to those who can operate without spectacle. And that terrified everyone, because spectacle used to be protection. Now it was risk. The ones acting different weren't plotting revenge. They were recalculating relevance, measuring how much of themselves needed to be visible to survive the next iteration. Monsters already knew the answer. Saints are still learning that goodness without leverage is just a story, and stories don't control systems. Memory does, and memory doesn't forget who adapted first. This is the most unstable moment, not collapse, not recovery, the space between after exposure, before the fall, when everyone senses something irreversible shifted, but no one agrees on what replaces it. The structure still stands, titles still function, meetings still begin on time, but conviction is gone. Authority feels borrowed. Every decision carries unfamiliar weight. They don't panic. Panic would confess dang. Instead, they hesitate. They add layers. They ask for alignment, feedback, consensus. Not for wisdom, but for insulation. When power begins protecting itself from perception, it has already lost internal gravity. The recording didn't destroy control. It introduced accounting. Accounting is merciless because it doesn't judge, it totals. Small behaviors accumulate. Patterns compound. What once felt forgettable becomes undeniable through repetition. That's why the atmosphere feels heavier now. Not watched, remembered. Exposure rewires time. Before, moments evaporated. After, they linger. Every choice echoes forward. The dominant question shifts from, is this effective, to how will this look later? And when optics outrank outcomes, systems slow themselves into irrelevance. You can feel it, everywhere. Decisions deferred, initiatives revisited. Language softened into ambiguity. They aren't hiding anymore. They're adjusting in public, Public adjustment humiliates structures built on certainty. It reveals that control was never absolute, just uncontested. Once memory contests it, authority starts narrating itself instead of exercising itself. Narration is the warning sign. Leaders explain, power acts. Explanations now arrive unprompted, context wrapped around simple choices. Justifications layered thick enough to muffle doubt. The louder the explanation, the weaker the command behind it. Everyone senses this, but no one names it, because naming it would finalize the shift. Some try to restore the past by invoking tradition, how it's always been done. But tradition without belief is costume. It convinces no one who has already seen the seams. Others create noise to outrun scrutiny. A common mistake. Chaos doesn't erase memory, it sharpens it. Every reaction becomes another entry in the ledger. The smartest ones do neither. They reduce surface area. They simplify. They wait. Power migrates during waiting periods. Not upward or downward, but sideways, into absences, into quiet operate. Ors, into people who no longer equate visibility with control. That's the real fall. Not dramatic, not announced. Just displacement. They're acting different because instinct knows what language avoids. The future stopped asking for permission. Control didn't disappear. It changed hands.